This is horizontal frames, frame set, rows equals 100, 500, 100. There are 3 values, and so it will be divided into 3 rows or 3 sections. One of the attribute is border. We can make use of border tag with the values. So it gives the thickness of the border. The first frame loads one independent program. Second frame, second row, it loads another independent program. Similarly, even for third rows, it loads third independent program. Dear students, welcome to CS classes. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in computer science, Vidhyaashram PU College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Students, let us start our discussion with one more tag in HTML, that is frame tag. What are frames, or what is a frame tag? These HTML frames are used to divide the web browser window into multiple sections where each section can be loaded separately. Here, frame is the tag. Frame tag is a collection of frames in a browser window. And frame set is a tag, is a collection of frames in a web page. See here, these are the tags, frame tags. We are used to create a frames in HTML document. You might have come across many of the website, and if you observe each page of a website, okay, if you look at each page, the all informations are displayed in different parts. In our first session, we have learned the layout of web page, isn't it? So in the layout, one of the layout is web content, or that is the main part where we can display different types of information. So in that content part, or that content layout, we can see different types of information. Now in that part, if you observe any of the website, in that particular layout, all the informations are in different parts of the web content layout or web content window. Similarly, here is an option for us, frames. Frames is an option for us. So here we can divide the web content window into number of sections. That is called as frames. How it is possible? That is possible through the HTML tag frame and frame set. So look at the example here now. Now this is frame set columns. If you look at the frame set columns, and this column specifies how many columns are contained in the frame set and the size of each column, absolute values in pixel. Now here in this example, suppose this is a web content layout. So this is the place we are going to display our information. So in this example, this web content window is divided into 3 columns. So here these columns are nothing but 3 frames. So we can say this web content layout or window is divided into 3 sections, or we say 3 frames. Here for example, frame set column, this is the tag equals double quote. Within double quote we are writing the values 100, 500, 100. So if you observe the example here, this is 100, 500, 100. There are 3 values. So this web layout are divided into 3 sections. So here what is the value of this? This value might be in pixels. Another example, if you look at another example, frame set cost. So these values can also be written 10% or 20%. In this example, there are 2 values. So the entire this web content layout will be divided into 2 sections. So this is an example for frame set columns. So, and you have to observe this. Each section of the columns, each sections in a frame set, which are loaded 3 different programs, or we can say this is one individual set or one column, this is another section, Here once if we divide the web content layout into 3 sections, and all 3 sections are independent. So here each section loads its own program or independent HTML program. So that is one part of it. Look at the example here. Now here, if you write the HTML code for this, HTML frame set is the tag here. Frame set columns 30, 30 and 40%. So here there are three values. So in this example, this web layout or this content window is divided into three sections or three columns. And here, look at this here. Look at the tag frame src equals file1.html, frame src equals files2.html, frame src equals file3.html. Then we are closing this frame set tag and HTML tag. So here in this example, there are three sections or three frames, and here we have written there are three different file names. Here file frame src stands for source. Here we are supposed to write the source file name or along with its location or along with its path. So in this example, there are three sections or three frames, and each frame will be loaded independent program or independent HTML code. Here in this example, the first column or first frame loads the file1.html. So the output of this file will be displayed in first frame, and output of second file2.html file will be displayed here, and similarly for file3.html, output of this file will be displayed in third frame or third column. So in this example, we have divided the web content section or content of a web page into three sections, that is called three frames, and each frames loaded with individual programs. So if you look into the example now, here if you want to execute this, here we have to write one HTML file for one column, for second column and third column. There are three independent HTML programs, and we have to write one more main HTML program or code where we have to include all these frame set tags. So this is how to divide the web content window into number of frames or number of sections. Now let us move on to next slide. This is another example. It is frame set. This is for rows. Here specifies how many rows are contained in the frame set and the size of each rows. Absolute values are in pixel, that is the unit. So here in this example, if you look at the example, suppose this is the web content layout. This is divided into three rows. So or nothing but three sections or three frames. So the look at the syntax. Here this is horizontal frames. Frame set rows equals 100, 500, 100. There are three values, and so it will be divided into three rows or three sections horizontally. Next one is another example, frame set rows equals 10% and 20%. Another method of writing the values. Here in this example, there are two values. So this will be divided into two sections or two frames, that is horizontal frames. And look at the example, one HTML, and here frame set rows equal to 30, 30, 40%. These are the values. There are three values. So it will be divided into three rows or three sections, three frames. And here frame src equal file1.html, frame src equal file2.html, frame src equal file3.html. Then we are closing frame set and HTML tags. In this example, this window is divided into three sections or three frames, and there are 30%, 30%, 40%. By looking at this, we can make out the number of sections in a web content window. Now, if you look at the file here, file1.html, this is frame src equal to file1.html. Here we are supposed to write the location of the file along with its path. src stands for source. This is a source file. So output of this file will be loaded into first row, that is in the first section or first frame. Similarly for second as well as third frame. So here again these 3 are independent programs. So this horizontal rows, there are 3 rows, 3 sections, each independent from another. So the first frame loads one independent program, second frame, second row, it loads another independent program. Similarly, even for third rows, it loads third independent program. So this is frame set divided into number of rows or horizontal frames. Now look at one more example here. This is frame set rows and columns. Here rows and columns, it specifies how many rows and how many columns are contained in the frame set and the size of each rows and absolute values are in pixel. In this example, we have divided the entire this web content layout into columns as well as rows. But in two previous examples, we have learned only to divide the layout into horizontal frame or vertical frames. But in this example, it is a combination of rows and columns. So in this example, we have divided the entire layout into 2 rows and 2 columns. Now look at the syntax for this. Here, example, frame set rows equals, here within double quote, we used to write 2 star separated by comma. This 2 stars, it stands for 2 rows. And here, COLS stands for columns equals again 2 stars within double quote separated by comma. And here this is an example where we are using rows as well as columns as a frame set. So here frame set rows equal to 2 stars and columns equal to 2 stars. So totally there are 2 rows and 2 columns. This is an example here. 1 row, second row and 1 column, second column. And here how do we write the values for this or example for this? Here frame set rows, columns, and here frames src equals file1.html and here file2.html, file3.html and file4.html. Here as we have divided this section into 4 frames or divided into 4 sections. So we are supposed to load 4 individual programs or we are supposed to write 4 independent programs for each sections or for each frame. Accordingly, we are writing here this is file1.html, one independent program, second, third, fourth. All these are 4 independent programs. So all the values are loaded accordingly into the number of rows and number of columns. So this is frame set rows and columns where we have divided the content layout into 2 rows and 2 columns. Now let us see other attributes we can make use of along with frame set tag here. Now here attributes of frame set tag, one is border. So this attribute specifies the width of the border for each frame in pixels. So it is a frame. So border of the frame, the size can be mentioned. So here for example, border equals to 5. The value of 0 means no border. So this is one specification. Here one of the attribute is border. We can make use of border tag with the values. So it gives the thickness of the border for each and every frames. Second, frame border. This attribute specifies whether a 3-dimensional border should be displayed between frames. This attribute takes value either yes or no. This is one of the another tag. It is another attribute of frame tag, that is frame border. This is an example. Frame border equal to 0 specifies no border. Next, one more attribute, that is frame spacing. This attribute specifies the amount of space between the frames in a frame set. This can take any integer value. So this is a frame spacing, the difference between 2 frames. Here for example, frame spacing equals 10. It means there should be 10 pixel spacing between each frame. Another attribute of frame set is frame spacing is used to give space between 2 frames. Next attribute is src. This attribute is used to give the file name that should be loaded in the frame. Its value can be only URL. So this is already we have used in our previous slide with the previous examples. File frame src. There we have used the tag. There we have used src attribute. So src stands for source. I told you we have to specify the file name along with its path. Here, for this one more example, src equals to, this is the location of the file, and it will be loaded on HTML file available in the HTML directory. This is one of the example. Next one is name. It's a name attribute. This attribute allows you to give a name to a frame. It is also possible to give name for each and every frames in a frame set. So these are all different attributes of frame set. Students, let us continue our discussion in our next session. Thank you very much.